Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar on using BD FACSDiva data in FCS Express. My name is Daniel Zimmerman and I'm going to be guiding you through today's topic. The webinar today will be about 20 minutes to half an hour. It's a fairly short material. If you have any questions during the middle of the webinar, please don't hesitate to ask using the question and answer box. The question and answer box is located inside your GoToMeeting control panel. The control panel may be hidden or minimized. You'll find a little red box with a white arrow in it on the side of, usually on the top right of your screen. And one of the sections in there will be a question box, and you can type anything you want to ask us during the webinar. We will answer the questions as we're able to during the course of the conversation. So the first question today is about using FCS Express with Diva data. Why would you do it? There's a lot of reasons for using third-party analysis software. FCS Express in particular allows you many tools in addition to what BD FACSDiva offers, and allows you many reporting options and capabilities. Today I'm not going to discuss the details of FCS Express in terms of reporting or in terms of gating details. What I am going to cover is how you can save time to get set up into FCS Express. So once you've chosen to use a third-party software, you can save time by importing your entire BD, your entire analysis from Diva into FCS Express. This will recreate all of the plots and gates for you so that you don't have to again. The other advantage of FCS Express, once you've chosen to use a third-party tool, is that the data will be exactly the same. FCS Express uses the exact same by exponential settings and offers even more flexibility than Diva does in that regard. So again, we've created this the import tool in order to help you save time and get your analysis going quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you an analysis inside Diva and then bring it into FCS Express, and I'll go through the steps that are involved to make that happen. So when I open up my window with Diva, what you see is Diva version 6. This also works in previous versions of Diva and in version 7. There are a few differences that you'll encounter when using Diva 7, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit as we go. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just show what we're looking at. This is a simple experiment. I'm not going to go through any detail of what's here. Other than that, we have several different kinds of plots. We have our dot plot, we have contour plots, we have some histograms with markers, and we have several gates, and we have our gate box with the statistics inside it. So once you've decided to go to FCS Express, you would simply select the experiment, and then under the File menu, there's an Export Experiment. And the Export Experiment, there's also an Export FCS Files. So the first thing we're going to do is Export Experiment. And you select your folder where you're going to export to, and OK. And what's happened now in the export, I'll show you what that folder actually looks like now. We have a file called demoexperiment.xml. And this is actually what contains all of the information about your plots and gates. And then you have a series of FCS files, so what look like data files. Now the first thing I am going to do is delete these data files. There is a problem in that when Diva exports the data files together with the experiment, the data files can't be used by anyone other than Diva. So this is a problem. This has been a problem for us and for other third-party software. And after working quite a bit with the Diva team, we've decided to specifically exclude these files. Now you can use them in FCS Express, but there are several problems. And as I delete them, I'll tell you what those are. So the key thing with those files is that The time parameter will be the first parameter. That's one way to notice. But also the compensation will be incorrect, and some of the scatter parameters, the data inside the scatter parameters, will be transposed. Okay, so instead of using those FCS files that got exported with the experiment, what we advise you to do is go back under the File menu and do a second export of FCS files. And that second export will, you select the folder again. I'm just going to put it in the same folder that we used before. So this is Diva Webinar. I think we just need to select the base folder and save. And now when we look inside the folder again, we can see that there are a number of files that are more explicitly named. With you have the tube name and you have the sample name. You have the specimen name. So with these files, we can now go into FCS Express and import the experiment. So inside FCS Express, what I'm going to do is go under the Application button. I go under Open Layout, Import BD FACSDiva file. And on my hard drive, I find the demo experiment, and the XML file is what it's looking for. And it's going to ask me, what do I want to load? So there's a number of options here. Now there's only one worksheet that's inside this XML file, so there's no choices. And I'm going to say to load the data file, the FCS files from this folder. Okay, the next question that you get in the import wizard is what configuration do you want to use? Now the configuration is, all this means is how do you want the plots to be laid out on the page. So Diva does not include information about how the plots are laid out, so or specifically what pages they should be on. So FCS Express has to ask this question. You can adjust, if you click around here, you can actually see that these page borders change. You can just go back to something that looks like it'll fit everything on the page. And if you're doing the same, if you're importing many times from the same experiment, you can save this configuration to a file. I'm not going to do that here. We'll just finish. And the next question, because we're looking at an acquisition worksheet rather than an analysis worksheet, is what data file do you want to use? Because the actual data file that was being looked at is not included with the export for an acquisition worksheet. And so I'm just going to pick my tube 1 and say OK. And now you can see that everything was imported into FCS Express. We have the same plots. We have the same contour plot with the quadrants. We have the same gates, and the same markers got recreated in FCS Express. Okay, one difference you'll find is that in Diva there were statistics associated with the gate. FCS Express does not automatically, in its hierarchical gate view, include statistics. It's very easy to see statistics. There's many ways. That probably the quickest way, if you want to see particular gate statistics, is simply to right-click on a plot and show gate statistics. All right, and that opens up a new window. You can move this around as you wish in the FCS Express layout. And in this case, I'm just going to I'll turn off the file name because we know what file name it's coming from, and we have our table of statistics. So this is the first type of experiment. This is the acquisition template. I'm going to do another export and import and show you the analysis template. So we're going to go back into Diva and open up this experiment 3. And this has this worksheet is an analysis worksheet, And so when we later import it into FCS Express, it'll already load the data for us. Okay, so you can see it's set up with histograms, with markers, gates, and a contour plot. And what I'm going to do is go and do my 2 exports again. So export experiment. We'll go to experiment 003. Let's replace everything. And we'll do another experiment, another export of the data files. This time I'm going to do something slightly different. Instead of putting them in the same folder, what I'm going to do is put them in a subfolder. And the reason for that is to show you something else that happens when you're doing the import. Okay, I'll just call these my FCS files. And we'll choose directory, and we'll save them out. And you can see when we look in Windows Explorer, you can see that we have experiment 003. We have the experiment with its numerical files. I'm going to get rid of them, but leave 1 behind this time. Let's delete that. And under FCS files, again, it recreated experiment 3 and the data files. Okay. Now when I come back into FCS Express, I'm going to import that particular experiment. So import BD FACSDiva file. And we're going to select experiment 3, the experiment 003.xml. This time I have a choice in the import options of which worksheet I want to import. Now you can actually check them both. You can check both the worksheets, but I'm just going to do the second worksheet. This time we'll load the data files. I could choose the folder, but I'm not going to do that yet. Again, then we'll go to create a new configuration for the page. One thing I didn't mention last time, although you probably noticed, is that these when we're creating the page size and the page configuration, we're not actually showing what the data is, we're just showing a preview. So this is just a schematic of that this is a histogram, this one is a density plot or contour, and so on. I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio so that I can create something that matches what I want. Let's make this a little smaller. Okay, now everything's going to fit on the page. When I say next and finish, now because FCS Express could not find the data files, it asked me what the name of, it asked me where the data files are. So it's trying to find a data file that matches this specimen and the unstained tube. Okay, and it's specifically looking for a file that includes, in order, the name of the specimen along with the name of the tube. In Diva version 6 and previous, all of these files that got exported using export FCS files were specifically named specimen_tube.fcs. As of Diva 7, you now have more options. You can include other I'll show you what the dialog looks like in a moment, but you can include other options. And so what we've done is we're saying that in order to complete this import successfully into FCS Express, you need to at least include the specimen and tube, and then you can include any other information as well. That's why you see the wildcard marker here, the star. So as long as you have the name of the specimen and the tube, it's going to work. Okay, so it's now asking to look in the folder. I can find the under this folder. I remember that I put it under experiment 3 under FCS files. And I'm going to click on display files. And this button looks in this particular folder for anything that matches the wildcard file specifier that I was showing before. Okay, so I press OK. And you can see that everything was found and the plots opened and everything looks great. Okay, so let me just move over and show you what that dialog would have looked like. So inside Diva 7, when you do the export, you have several options here. You can do the experiment name, you can do the tube name, specimen name, and even put your own custom text here. Okay, so as long as you include the specimen name and the tube name, FCS Express will be able to find it. So let's go back to normal pen, okay, and come back to FCS Express. Now, one difference I did want to point out, in Diva, the contour plot had outliers. In FCS Express, that kind of thing is very easy to add. If I just right-click on the plot, go to Format, under the overlays, there's a choice to show the outliers. And when I preview, you can now see the outliers in there, and let's press OK. So anything like that about the configuration of the plot is very easy to change in FCS Express. The other thing that happened here when we imported it is all of the files in that folder were imported. So we can go through using our previous and next and change the data files on all. So again, these are other topics related to FCS Express. We have many other webinars that are going to talk about them. I just wanted to point out a little bit that you can do it inside FCS Express. So once we've got all of these, I wanted to take a closer look at the actual bi-exponential and bi-exponential settings. So as you know, one of the things that people encounter when they're using Diva is that there are values that are below 0. And this is simply a scaling. It's a mathematical construct. It doesn't actually change what populations are considered positive or negative. It's just how the mathematics works in order to give you nice-looking populations, specifically when you're using compensation. So when I come back into Diva, I can minimize the Windows Explorer window, and just pick one of these. Let's pick this plot over here, the bi-exponential editor. Maybe I need to come back to the demo experiment. Okay, so you see when I'm looking at tube 1 in the demo experiment, inside Diva I can see many of the bi-exponential settings here. So this parameter has a setting of 200, D blue is 161, and so on. And it's called the below 0 parameter. Below 0 just roughly means this is where the values get. This is how negative the values get. And then that number gets fed into a formula that tells Diva how to display the rest of the data. You can also change these. They can either be on automatic or on manual. In FCS Express, we have something similar, except that instead of operating on the entire operating on the data file, it operates on a plot by plot basis. So you can change the settings by plot if you needed to. What I'm going to do on this plot is maximize it to make it a little easier to see. And this is not the same plot, but the same principle applies. So when I right-click and go to Format in FCS Express, under the axis options, you can see on my x-axis that I have a below 0 parameter with a value of 115. This is by default the value that FCS Express gets from the data file. You can, if you don't want to use this, you can type in your own. If for some reason you don't like how it works, I can make this smaller or larger, and you can see that the scaling changes. I can also calculate it automatically. And there's a couple of ways to calculate it automatically. You can use whatever the plot is gated on first to get rid of data you don't care about and then calculate it, or calculate it on no gate. But the algorithm that is operating here is exactly the same as the algorithm that's operating inside Diva. In general, you will not need to deal with these parameters you'll just leave it on automatic and it'll pull it from the data file. However, if it's not looking the way you expect it to look, then you can adjust it over here. Okay. So does anyone have questions about the importer? I'm going to move on to show a little bit about data files, just using data files directly. Okay, so let's go on, and instead of using one of these layouts, I'll make a new layout. And in FCS Express, when you create a new layout, you get what looks like a blank page. And I'm going to insert, let's start by inserting a color dot plot on here. So when I insert my color dot plot, it's going to ask me what data file I want to use. And let's show that numerical data file that I left in the other plot. Sorry, I left when exporting the experiment. So what we're going to get here is a message that this file was exported as part of a DIVA experiment and is therefore an invalid data file. Please re-export the experiment rather than as an FCS file rather than as an experiment. So by default, FCS Express will not open this file. Now you can change that. If for some reason you don't have access to your original DIVA experiment, or you know that the data and the parameters you're looking at are okay, you can come into the preferences under the application button, edit preferences, and then go under data loading and FCS files. Okay, and you can see that we have a specific option for allow opening FACSDiva data files that were generated by exporting an experiment. And if I turn this on and press OK, now the next time I try to open the plot, it's going to find it. Okay, now as you notice that this is the time parameter comes first. That is a dead giveaway that this file was exported as an experiment. Okay, but all of the other parameters are here with all of their names, and that you can still use this. And of course, you can also use a data file that's one of the standard data files. And you can open that without any problem. Okay. So as we imported the DIVA data files, we also imported their compensation. Under the data, you can always see what the compensation matrices are. I clicked on compensations and we have the window. I'm going to dock the window. And under, you can see that the compensations were automatically added, and they're over here, and you can see what the matrix is. Okay, so for every data file you load, the compensation is going to be added. You can change your preferences so that it doesn't automatically load. You can also set up your files initially without a compensation, and then as long as you have your single sign controls, you can create one manually. Now we have webinars to cover that topic, so I won't go through the details here, but you can handle all of that inside FCS Express. So that covers the topics that I wanted to go over today. Does anybody have any questions that we can answer before we wrap up? Okay, I see someone asked about the working with zipped experiments. The zip experiment simply takes all of these files, the XML and the data files, and stores them in a zip file. So you can simply unzip that and then work with that data. Why is the compensation matrix blank in this case? That is a good question. I did not take a look at the data. It could be that in DIVA I have not set up compensation. So that's simply a matter of this particular data, not a question. This is what was in the data file. Okay. So Again, we have a lot of resources that you can use to help get started in FCS Express and with Diva data. This webinar is being recorded and it will be put on our website and on YouTube. From our website, here's our YouTube page. We have our de novo software channel has many many videos, and you'll be able to find this one up there fairly soon. On our website, we also store the recorded webinars here on our website under recorded webinars, and all of the information that we've got here is also in the tutorials, and you can find that in your own copy of FCS Express under the application button. You can always go to Help Tutorials, or on our website under Support you can go to Tutorials, and then you can see the tutorials on our website. And so someone is asking about the point about removing the files from the original export. So the point about removing the files is that we don't want to use those files. What is in those files may be correct and it may not be correct. It's actually encoded in a slightly non-standard way that if you're going to re-import this experiment into Diva, Diva can handle it and make sense of it. But if you're just using that file as a plain FCS file, like FCS Express would be, then FCS Express may misinterpret what's in there, and any third-party software will misinterpret what's in there. There are cases where we've seen the scatter parameters transpose, so that data from one parameter is in another. And there are also cases where we've seen, and they're labeled incorrectly, so the name of one shows the data of the other, and vice versa. And we have seen that the compensation is not always correct. And so that's why we're recommending getting rid of those files and re-exporting as FCS files. Okay, does anyone have any other questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you for attending. We look forward to seeing you at future webinars, and have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.